Hey, welcome. My name is Rob. I use the pronouns he, him, and with me is Mads, who will introduce herself in a moment. And today we're going to be playing for the first time Ironsworn, which is in the way we're going to play it, is a cooperative, GM-less fantasy role-playing game. It's kind of powered by the apocalypse with some interesting accommodations for kind of playing in a solo or co-op manner. It's a game I've wanted to play for a long time, but I've only played solo, and I've talked Mads into playing it with me. So today we're going to do our session 0, which involves world building and character building. We actually have our ideas for our characters pretty well fleshed out already. But we're going to go through the initial section of the session 0 for the game, which is establishing the world of the Ironlands. Over to you, Matt.
Yes, so I'm Mads, and she, her, they pronouns. And yeah, usually I don't do a lot of fantasy stuff anymore because of, certain well-known games that have a bunch of crunch and mechanics that I don't want to play with anymore. But yeah, Rob was convincing in terms of making this a more narrative and role play heavy game, so that's what I'm hoping for. Even amidst like the mechanics, which sounds like it will drive the story rather than interrupt it or bring it short. So I am hoping for the best.
One of the things I find really interesting about this system is that it is quite crunchy to us who are used to playing pretty light games, like rules light games. But the crunch is not kind of the minutiae of what type of weapon do you have and what type of armor do you have, and like, okay, this is the special rules for grappling and all that kind of thing. It's crunchy because it's serving this, it's kind of this engine for story generation. I think it abstracts all the things I like to have abstracted, which is like, okay, the combat's pretty cinematic and broad strokes, for example. But there are a lot of, it uses PBTA moves, and there are a lot of them, and there's kind of they're quite mechanical in some ways, but I think so although it feels quite dense and crunchy, it's in the service of generating story, which is an interesting thing that you don't often see.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it out and see how these mechanics will work in terms of the story progression. I am a very narrative heavy role player, and I appreciate games that allow us to explore the characters themselves, not get caught up into too much, as Rob said, minutia. So I'm excited to see how this is going to develop. We actually had been talking back and forth on Discord to develop like what kind of character concept we had, and that is where we actually started first before we even really touched the stats or the world building book and the rules. So already we had a great start. So let's go into the world of Ironsworn, or at least what we're going to be playing in. There's choices in the book that allows you to, pretty much create a basis for the environment that these characters will be living in. And I think starting there will be good. And then hopefully also inform what certain things our characters will be able to do. Okay, so got the world.
Yeah, so I guess the background kind of is that the Ironlands are somewhere that people fled to from some cataclysm. We're going to discover what that was, also at least broad strokes. And they've been settling there for, humans have been there for a couple of 100 years or so, I think, is the background. And it's kind of a wild, northern, cold land to some extent. It's kind of, there's a lot of kind of ancient Britain, Iron Age Britain / Viking flavor in this. And yeah, so then the exercises we run for a bunch of truths about the world and establish one choice for each of these truths, and that gives us some context for, like, how much magic is there, how much are we leaning on monsters and all that kind of thing. It'll become obvious as we go through.
Okay. So the first choice is the old world. So there are 3 choices here, and then there's also the option to create your own. So do you want to read them off, or do you want to just choose?
Yeah, let's just choose, I think, or at least maybe the options are kind of these. So this is about why did people flee to the Ironlands? So the first option is kind of there was an invading force in the old world. The second one is there was a plague. And the third one is that there was kind of environmental desolation, famine, too many people, that kind of thing. Any of those jump out to you?
Because of what I had developed as backstory for my character, there's going to be an ancestor in this anyway. And I mean, I feel like there is some bit in there of the first choice, which has to do with the Scold. But
I think I like that one, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that sounds fine. I mean, the savage clans called the Skuld invaded the kingdoms of the old world. Our armies fell. Most were killed or taken into slavery. Those who escaped set sail aboard anything that would float. After an arduous months-long voyage, the survivors made landfall upon the Ironlands.
Yeah, I think out of all of them, that probably appeals to me the most.
Okay.
It feels like it has the most hooks for a story there. So
yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick that. Yep. I'm going to plug that into our character keeper.
And we can establish exactly what the Skuld are, or
yep.
if they're following us, or
right,
potentially going to.
And again, this is like the old world. So this could be ancient history. This could be fairly recent history. It's just something to establish of where these people came from.
Right. I think it's kind of a few generations back. So
yeah,
200
that's
to
what I'm
300
thinking.
years or so.
Yeah, because again, I'm like,
so there's memories of this, but none of us have ever seen the old. Well, nobody alive now has ever seen the old world, or
neither of us.
Certainly most people haven't, put it that way.
Right. So, all right. Next one is iron.
Yeah, so iron is super important in this game, because the kind of mechanical drive in the game is that the way you earn experience points is to swear and then fulfill vows, and you swear a vow on a piece of iron of some kind. So this is kind of, this is what does iron mean? So the first one is the imposing hills and mountains of the Ironlands are rich in iron ore. Most prized of all is the star-forged black iron. Second of all is the weather is bleak. Rain and wind sweep in from the ocean. The winters are long and bitter. One of the first settlers complained, only those made of iron dare live in this foul place, and thus our land was named. So the second one is kind of, it's metaphorical rather than literal.
Right. And
the third one is kind of the funky otherworldly one. Inscrutable metal pillars are found throughout the land. They're iron grey and smooth as river stone. No one knows their purpose. Some say they're as old as the world. Some, such as the iron priests, worship them and swear vows upon them. Most make the warding sign and hurry along their way. When they happen across one, the pillars do not tarnish, and even the sharpest blade cannot mark them. I know which one I'm leaning toward, but how do you feel, Matt?
I mean, I'm always leaning towards the haunted and creepy. So I mean, that's not a fair question. But I mean, I know they did it in the creators podcast, and I don't know if you want to do the same thing. Although, like as we found out playing wonderful games like The Between and Carved by Brindlewood Bay, the Brindlewood Bay games, it's like it's just canonical for whatever's at your table. It doesn't have to be exactly the same.
Even though the root of it is the same, it can go in a very different direction. And like for me, that's the interesting one here.
Okay, that sounds cool to me,
especially because, so like, not to jump too far ahead to character stuff, but I think some of the stuff with your character could, if we've got this concept of like iron priests who worship these pillars, and it's not clear whether they're kind of helpful or harmful, if they're a malevolent force or whatever, that could tie into some of the character building stuff that we have in mind in interesting ways.
That's what I was thinking. Give us that backstory option, and I think that would fly into that. And I've lost my sheet. Here we go. I'm just going to keep talking because it's like we're going to just totally cut this shit in post, but I have a ton of screens open and it's hilarious. Okay.
There are a lot of PDFs, yeah.
There are a lot of PDFs, which is great because then this helps us create what we are going to create. All right. Legacies. Ooh. All right.
So this is kind of about the presence of humanity in the lands in the Ironlands. So option 1, we're the first humans to walk these lands. Option 2, other humans sailed here from the old world untold years ago, but all that is left of them is a savage, feral people we call the Broken. Is their fate to become our own? And third option is before the Ironlanders, even before even the firstborn, which in this context is like elven giants, and there's some kind of wolf people, I forget the name of them, and so on. Other people lived here. Their ancient ruins are found throughout the Ironlands. How do you feel about those options?
I mean, I always am fascinated by ruins of other people's. It's very hard because, I mean, again, knowing what I want to include.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you read some of these options, because it's almost like there's always been kind of one interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like I always gravitate towards like kind of like the thing that gives you the most imagination. Like, what can you what can you imagine of these people long ago? What can you think of as being their way of life? And is there anything recorded? I mean, some of these people may be still these old people, maybe of just oral storytelling, so nothing is saved. It's all in the creative memory.
And it's also possible it could tie in with the iron pillars, in some way, that are also these older ruins. I guess the other ones have some interesting possibilities. Like if we're the first humans to walk these lands, that means, okay, so what does that imply about a relationship with the firstborn, so the elves and so on?
I mean, and that always the other peoples are always like the interesting wrinkle, because again, if they're not human, they don't understand us, so they could avoid us, or
want us here, or we're kind of to them we're the invaders, right? Just as the Stills were to us. And
of course,
I'm kind of less keen on the middle option, which is kind of the one with the Broken, although
I'm not.
I don't know, you end up with those kind of tropes about like savage people
and that's
like, where can you go? Like, it could be interesting to figure out like what's making them like that, but I don't know, it doesn't call to me particularly.
I don't really want to do that one, no.
So I'm good with either first or third, so whatever you want to go with.
Just for fun.
Oh, coin flip time.
Well, no, actually, die roll. 1 to 3 is of course the first one, and then 4 to 6 is the last choice. We're the first humans. Yep.
All right.
Hold on.
So I guess the origin of the pillars is more mysterious in that way. I kind of dig that. That works.
Yeah, I think that has possibilities, that's for sure. Okay, communities is the next one. All right. Okay. You want
to do some reading here?
Yeah. We are few in number in this accursed land. Most rarely have contact with anyone outside of our own small steading or village, and strangers are viewed with deep suspicion. Or we live in communities called circles. These are settlements ranging in size from steading with a few families to a village of several hundred. Some circles belong to nomadic folk. Some powerful circles might include a cluster of settlements. We trade and sometimes feud with other circles. Or we have forged the Ironlands into a home. Villages within the havens are connected by well-trod roads. Trade caravans travel between settlements in the havens and those in outlying regions. Even so, much of this land is untamed.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, I'm liking.
The havens are kind of the most civilized and environmentally hospitable area, I think.
Right. I mean, I'm good with either 2 or 3. So
yeah, I feel the same way. I don't know. It's kind of, I'm thinking of my character's backstory, which is quite, you know, he's someone who's lived his life as a warrior. So there's obviously some kind of infrastructure in terms of warfare
and we'll get to that one later on.
We will get
that
to that
yeah.
one. I'm kind of inclined to go with the last one, that, you know, it doesn't imply that this is like super civilized, but there's at least like this toehold of civilization in one region. And also that maybe ties in well with your character, that she's able to travel around.
Yeah, I'm thinking so, because I mean, if it's really rough terrain, I mean, granted, I mean, she is a scrappy, tough person, but I mean, it's easier when you have paths and roads to be able to travel on between places, to be able to be, well,
at least in that kind of hospitable area.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of, you know, I think the vast majority of the map is still wilderness.
Yeah. No, and that's the implication. And also too, I mean, with part of her history being settling down a little bit into a much larger community / town. Yeah, I mean, the third one plays into that more, because it just feels like there's more civilization about, and more frequency of being able to find these bigger communities. So I like that.
Right. Yeah. Even now I'm kind of picturing it's not anything to the size of like your standard fantasy city or Waterdeep or your Baldur's Gate or whatever from
right. No, it's not. It's
not.
This
is like far more Iron Age than medieval.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, good.
All right. Leaders is the next one.
Leaders.
I was looking over this one myself, because I was just like, this could go so many different ways.
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones that like all 3 options are pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, no, that's not true of the others, but to me, you know, in terms of the things that call to me. So the first one is leadership is as varied as the people. Some communities are governed by the head of a powerful family, or they have a council of elders who make decisions and settle disputes. In others, the priests hold sway. For some, it is duels in the circle that decide. That's pretty cool, because it's just like anything goes, you know, each community is kind of unique. I
actually, you know, I don't even want to go for any further than that, because the leadership is so varied. I mean, there's so many different ways that this situation can spin between, you know, my character who is a traveling bard, and then your character who is or was part of a war band. So, I mean, you know, if you don't know the lay of the land, or you're not familiar with what territory you're in, you could get yourself in hot water.
Right. Yeah. And it also feels like it could be pretty fun that we then get to kind of establish some pretty varied places as we travel around.
I like that. I like that a lot. I don't want to go further. I just want to take that one.
Yep. Let's do it then.
Defense.
Strong choice. I like it.
Yeah. Defense. Well, but definitely a varied choice. That's why I like it. Okay. Defense is the next one. Defense specifically mentions war bands. So I don't know if that's.
Yeah. So broadly, the first option is kind of supplies are too precious and lands are too sparsely populated to organize fighting forces. So, you know, there's kind of community militias and something like that, but there's nothing beyond that level. I think, given my character's background, that kind of doesn't really work. No. The second one is that there is this kind of overarching, you know, a unified force called the Wardens that is spread throughout all the communities, and something like, I guess, something between Knights Templars and a kind of police force or something.
Yeah. I mean, and some of them are free wardens because they're wandering mercenaries who hire on. So, I mean, it can work, but then you'd end up being maybe a warden or something like that, or maybe the opposite of a warden instead of being part of a war band. So
yeah, the third one is like, I'm going to read that one out because I feel like this is the one we're going to go for. Our war bands are rallied to strike at our enemies or defend our holdings. Though not nearly as impressive as the armies that once marched across the old world, these forces are well trained and equipped as their communities can manage. The banners of the war bands are adorned with depictions of their old world history and Ironland victories.
Yeah.
So this is, I think that fits with my guy's background, that it's, he served some leader of a warband for a decent amount of time, and I think he's morally conflicted about what that was they were really fighting for, and so on. It wasn't exactly the cause of truth and justice. It was a territorial or power dispute.
I mean, again, that's the kind of stuff that we're going to try to develop because, we have a bunch of questions that we tossed at each other, and I love questions. All right.
Yes. All right. Let's
Mysticism.
move on.
Hold on. Mysticism. I can't spell it for whatever reason. All right. So how do we consider magic? Now, before we go through those choices, one of the things that I've created in the backstory and inciting incident and all this other stuff is this idea of ancestors. And this ancestor was in a time of serious ass magic. So, I mean, we can say that magic works blank according to one of these choices or make up our own, but then there was some sort of higher magic involved way back when. So just kind of keep that in mind when we pick.
It's interesting too
one.
with the previous one where we're talking about defense and the war bands that kind of are not as impressive as the armies that once marched across the old world. So it kind of implies that there was a higher civilization, something, like an ancient Egypt or a ancient Greece or something, which is where we are descended from, and we're living on a wilder frontier, so things are simpler. But yeah, I could imagine that fitting with, or they had people who studied magic and studied the stars and that kind of thing. Yeah,
the metal pillars, we don't know how long they've been around. So I mean, that could speak to a time where somebody created these things. How, we don't know. I mean, and that's part of the mysticism of the place. So
yeah, so the first choice is kind of there is superstition, but most people believe that like real magic is lost, if it ever existed at all. Second is that magic is rare and dangerous, but those few who wield it are truly gifted. So, typical people wouldn't have any magical power, but it's not, the exceptional people we encounter may, or if we are exceptional ourselves. And the third is kind of magic is more common. It flows through this land as the rivers flow through the hills. The power is there for those who choose to harness it. And even common folk know a helpful ritual too. I don't know. Where do you fall between these? I don't have a strong one that's pulling at me particularly.
Yeah, I can't say that now because I don't know how it's going to play out. But I mean, I've always liked the idea that there's magic coursing through the land. And I mean, for this particular setup, it could be very helpful, especially given what will happen, to have the knowledge that because magic does flow, powers for those who choose to harness it, and then some people choose to harness it in the worst ways, as we're going to find out. And then like the common folk, I mean, like everybody's got their rituals as well, and that is still true. So I mean, I think that just makes the most sense to me.
Does that imply that those rituals that common folk may use are kind of functional. They're something that works, like they're blessing crops and they're healing wounds and they're.
I mean, it can. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely something where, I mean, you know, like a hedge witch or like, you know, you know, a sage could, like, you know, perform different things, but there's like small magics as opposed to
Right.
like, you know, people that could harness more power if they knew how. And then that's where you get into the more serious magic.
Yep.
And it's like a throwback of like whatever happened in the way behind, you know, way back times of the times of the pillars being created and like, you know, whatever else was able to do higher magic.
Cool. So it sounds to me like we're somewhere between option 2 and 3 here.
Yeah, I mean,
is that
if you
fair?
want to, yeah, if you want to tweak picking the
I
third
really like
option.
I really like what you said there about like kind of hedge witches and you know, wise folk and whatever, that it's not everyone, but there's, you know, most communities might have 1 or 2 people that do that kind of thing. I dig that.
Absolutely, because I mean, like those would be the ones that would kind of lead the villagers or the tribes or whatever into, you know, some rituals that would call to the environment and the land that they are living on. And then there's the ones that are like, you know, into the higher magic that might study it or might just have, you know, themselves like imbued with power that they can control or something like that. I mean, it's like me personally, I believe a whole bunch of different things about magic. So I mean, this is like a loaded question for me.
And they could be the kind of person that, you know, you might seek out on a quest because you know that you need their guidance or something. Like
that's exactly it.
The kind of person that people might tell stories about and you're not really sure like how real it is, but they could be. I dig it.
Cool. Like I mean, and we can always add to this. This is not like a be all end all.
This is exactly. If it doesn't, I think if any of these truths don't end up helping where we want to drive the story, we can
always change it. I mean,
always change it. And like some of these things are not going to come up straight away either. So or ever.
No, exactly. But I mean, it helps. It helps to know the background because this is the culture that the characters will be living in.
Right. It gives you some clues about like what their attitudes might be to these topics.
Okay.
Then on to my favorite subject, religion. I always enjoy kind of exploring that topic in role-playing games just because it's a real world thing I find really fascinating, even though I was brought up totally secular and don't particularly have any religious beliefs, but I just from a kind of what's the subject where you study humanity? Tip of my tongue, I can't remember what it is. Not sociology, but kind of anthropology. And from an anthropological perspective, I find it
cultural. Yep.
Fascinating.
And this is definitely part of it for sure. And then there's a difference between religion and philosophy and mysticism. So, I mean, I've always considered myself more of a philosopher, mystical frame of mind. I mean, I was raised in religion, but it's not like I, you know, am totally beholden to it. Although culture determines from many years in it.
Right.
I mean, like you just know certain things that you do or believe or whatever, but then, you know, you fall out of it because it's like they don't match with what you're thinking anymore. So that's also
every bit as true of me with my secular upbringing. You know, I often think of that as that, you know, religion's so determined by the culture you were born into, but that's also true of me being born into like no religion. And would I think that if I hadn't been?
Exactly.
Anyway, we're getting way off.
I mean, it may play into your character. You're going to be playing somebody who's going to be like, you know, wrestling with this kind of stuff. So it makes sense, you know. All right, so go ahead.
What are our options here? Okay, the first one, a few Ironlanders still make signs or mumble prayers out of habit or tradition, but most believe the gods long ago abandoned us. Number 2, the people honor old gods and new. In this harsh land of prayer is simple but powerful comfort, is a simple but powerful comfort. 3rd, our gods are many. They make themselves known through manifestations and miracles. Some say they even secretly walk among us. The priests convey the will of the gods and hold sway over many communities. I'm totally open to being swayed over this, but my instant draw is to the middle option there. That it's not like, oh, we have avatars of gods walking among us so much, but there, religion is an aspect of people's lives, and there are priests that have political influence and that kind of thing. But I'm very much open to being swayed if you have different ideas.
No, I mean, again, because of the presence of the iron pillars.
Right. What do they mean? And that's like almost like a new religion right there.
Yeah.
Like that.
So
newish.
that's, and then they're ones that like still honor the old gods and refresh the herbs at their sash, at their window sash, or they will be very careful and apologize if they step on something that they don't feel they should out in the wild. I mean, I think it all exists.
What do they make of the iron pillars and those who,
or the iron priests?
Right, exactly. It's like there's a conflict there potentially, or at least a distrust.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's something that we could always explore. I feel like I'm not saying that we are, but I just feel like we're going through Witcher stories because it's like,
yeah, right. It's like one of the. It does feel like
Witcher the stories, not the show. Okay, I mean it's a little different.
Yeah,
just want to clarify that.
I really enjoyed the initial short story collection there.
Oh my god,
I got a little zoned out of the novels, but I did read them all.
I think I gave up when it didn't make sense what happened to the girl Ciri, I think.
Yeah.
To me, that like as soon as those weird, what I didn't consider progressively made sense, once that broke me out of my suspension of disbelief, I was like, okay, I'm done. Everything else was beautiful up to that point, and then I had to stop.
And there seemed to be a long bit of like Geralt just wandering fairly aimlessly, looking for her.
That's what it seemed like, and
making a lot of progress. And I don't know. Yeah.
I'm hoping we don't do that in our stories.
Yeah. I liked the first ones, although they were kind of like these sarcastic and cynical spins on fairy stories and stuff.
Absolutely.
Those were pretty fun.
Yeah. And then okay, next section.
But you're right. I think it is like a kind of a touchstone for the flavor of this game, and we can talk in a little bit about other ones as well.
Yeah, not that we're gonna like totally use that as the influence, but I mean, like,
no, I'm trying not to.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Firstborn.
The
Firstborn have passed into legend. Some say the remnants of the old tribes still dwell in deep forests or high mountains. Most believe they were never anything more than myth. The firstborn live in isolation and are fiercely protective of their own lands. And the last choice is the firstborn hold sway in the Ironlands. The elves of the deep forests and the giants of the hills tolerate us and even trade with us, for now. Ironlanders fear the day they decide we are no longer welcome here. I mean, I don't mind if, they're part of the interaction, because it could definitely fall into more paths, more journeys, because we're not taking a straight line to whatever we pick as like the initial goal, right? I mean, because again, it's going to lead from one thing to another and to another,
and you've got a heck of a lot of progress boxes to check to get that that quest complete, right? So it's like you kind of, it has to be a rambling story to some extent.
That's why it made me like get a little overwhelmed when I was even contemplating this as possibly doing as a solo. I was just like, I don't have enough energy to get through this, but with another person I think I can manage.
I think you have the ideas to bounce around. I've played it a little bit solo, and it's fun, and it gave me an appreciation for the system. But yeah, I think it feels to me like it should shine in this mode more than any other.
All right. Okay, so we're picking the third, right? Or are we picking one of the other ones?
I don't know, second or third. I think I like I'm going to confess something in my settings. I really like a creepy elf, like that the elves are like mysterious and isolated, and they probably don't like humans very much, and you know they're dangerous. I always found it a bit like when you get some of these generic D&D settings, like the Forgotten Realms, where like, oh, every other blacksmith isn't an elf or something, and it just takes all the mystery and the magic out of them.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, again,
but that may just be me.
Well, no, but I mean, if you want it that way, we can, because this is just the start. It doesn't mean that this is all the way through.
Right. And that said, I think that could work with either option 2 or 3 here. I mean, it could even work with option 1, but it feels like 2 or 3 is good.
So if we use, let's just give an example. So if we go into option 2, which is live in isolation, fiercely protective of their own lands. Yeah. It's kind of like, I'm going to use another touchstone because it's weird. In the Princess Bride, they know they're not supposed to go into that forest, but they do anyway. And they run into the ROUSs and all that kind of stuff. So
that's also in The Witcher, right?
I
remember in season 1 of the show where they kind of,
I don't remember exactly.
Those druids, or
I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember the stories. I'm trying not to let my love of the visual media like get in the way of like how
I watched season 1 of the show, and then I read all of the books, and then I watched season 2 of the show. So that was like my order of consuming those things, and I've never played any of the games.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard of the games, never played any of the games. It was actually somebody's mentioning something about one of the story arcs that was fascinating to me, because it sounded like one of the old fairy tales I used to read. So I was like, oh, okay, well, let me start them. And I'm like, I fell in love. I mean, like, again, with those first few stories with, like, the journey, I thought it was going to go in a different direction. And if it had, I think I would have continued, finished the books, but because it didn't and went meandering into a way that I was just like, you know what? I really don't think this female would have done this way. I got broken and I could not finish the story. So, I know, I'm hoping it doesn't happen to us.
We'll see.
All right. So we can start with, how about this? We start with firstborn live in isolation and are fiercely protective of their own lands, because if in our progress track, we stray into their lands, that could provide some serious ass wrinkles.
But we could, again, we could kind of do a midway between the two here, where there is kind of some level of trade.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
there's certainly like distrust and not like so much mixed communities.
So we'll start with the second one, and then we'll addendum with there is some trade with humans, but on a
maybe the communities that live close to some of those places may trade with them, but they're not community. You're not going to run into an elf,
right, in communities at the edge of their lands. All right, I mean, we start there.
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
if you're happy, I'm happy.
It works. I mean, again, starting off point, we can always change it, or we get into trouble and it really gets fucked up.
And we just like retcon everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, good shows do that all the time. Beasts. All right.
Okay, so this is kind of monsters and so the beasts of old are nothing but legend. A few who travel into the deep forests and high mountains return with wild tales of monstrous creatures, but they're obviously delusional. No such things exist. Option 2, monstrous beasts stalk the wild areas of the Ironlands. And option 3, beasts of all sorts roam the Ironlands. They dwell primarily in the reaches, but range into the settled lands to hunt. There they often prey on cattle, but attacks from travelers, caravans, or even settlements are not uncommon. have kind of no strong feeling toward any of these in particular. So I'm going to throw this right over to you.
I want to say 2, because that gives a really wide option.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to say that they're going to like, be so not domesticated, but I mean, like so used to the settlements that they're going to like encroach and like start to invade and all this kind of stuff, because that just puts in like extra wrinkles, especially if you're going to be trying to work in like your warband and then this weirdness with the pillars and all this other stuff. Too many
topics.
Yeah. I mean, again, if we stray into their lands, wait, why am I doing this the hard way? It's called copy paste. All right, great.
Paste, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
so,
you and I have both played Trophy enough to like the mysterious monsters that
yeah.
I kind of like that vibe of like, it's not like if we encounter one of these things, people are not necessarily going to know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're saying, oh, there's an owl bear in the woods, or
right. No, well,
whatever.
There's no
like,
real names for those. I
yes.
mean, it's like it's how they present, and maybe when we narrate, maybe it'll be something that is so nebulous, it's so dark, and it's just so shadowy that we can't tell what the hell it is. So we are not going to name it. We're just going to say, oh, this thing has a roar. This thing has claws.
Right.
Better avoid.
That's my preference. Yeah, it makes sense. And
okay.
My gut feel from the characters we've established are kind of that this is not going to be a big part of what we're doing. That could change.
If we stumble, and say we ask the Oracle and it screws us over,
right?
Which is
but it's not going to
possible.
be kind of a focus or
no.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But I mean, again, adds wrinkles to an already interesting relationship, because it's like, again, we'll see how this starts. That's going to be the fun part. All right. Horrors. Yay. Nothing but stories to frighten children. We are wary of dark forests and deep waterways, for monsters lurk in those places. In the depths of the long night, when all is wreathed in darkness, only fools venture beyond their homes. Or the dead do not rest in the Iron Lands. At night, we light torches, scatter salt, and post sentries at the gate. It is not enough. They are coming. I mean, this just adds this regard. No, this doesn't even add a wrinkle anymore. Now we're talking about a full-on,
right? Yeah.
Full-on sheet of shit.
That third one it just makes me think of like, well, either Game of Thrones or
freaking Walking Dead.
Yeah, like Walking Dead or like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, where
I still have to watch that. Dang it!
They're like holed up in a mansion and zombies are all.
I gotta watch that, because that just looks hilariously.
I actually read the book.
Oh, okay. Was the book good? I don't know.
It was before the movie was out. It's it is high concept and kind of silly, but it's
silly. It can be, silly can be interesting.
And it's kind of clever the way he wove it into the original book. It's using huge chunks of the original text, and he's kind of woven the zombies in there, and it's kind of funny from a literary appreciation side of things, even if the story is kind of goofy.
I have to honestly say, I was never into Austen. I mean, social graces and social foibles and well, basically it's obviously the literary base for like Good Society, I'm sure. I mean, for the Good Society game, but I don't like reading about it, because I don't like playing political, social, games. I like, I mean, if you're going to fight stuff, you're going to fight stuff. If you're going to talk, then you should be more involved with important things, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is stupid coming from me, because I will say, I mean, there's always this wish of like needing to have relationships of some sort in a game, because when you are bonded in some way to another character, it just makes the story more enriched. So if you are just kind of like willy-nilly, people that just thrown together, it doesn't make sense to me. I even will like found family movies because, you know, there's still some bond there, whether they hate each other, whether they love each other and then hate each other again. I mean, it's still something to bounce off of, and then you can either feel the tension, see the romance, see the, you know, something that's tying them together rather than, oh, well, they're just kind of like a gang. Who cares?
Mm.
You know? So I do like stories like that. But for horrors, I mean,
So we're probably ruling out the last one there, right? And I think that's probably the right decision.
yeah, I'm just like,
Well,
no,
yeah.
Well, because I mean, also if we're going to be traveling for our journey
Mm.
or our journeys, we don't necessarily want 2 or 3, I would think, just because it's like that would just make, well, maybe 2.
Right. Yeah. It's like
For some difficulty, but not so much difficulty that we're like, well, oh shit, we're ducking undead every single night. So
yeah, I agree.
1 or 2.
So we're gonna. I think
or
we
combo.
I think we go with 1.
Okay, that's fine.
That, you know, even that doesn't mean that there is no such thing.
Yeah, because I mean, being a bard, my character would know these stories,
right?
And if we happen
I'm sure
to
there are stories for 100%.
But if we happen to stumble into a living or not living story, more fun.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing, you know, if with option 2 there, the middle option, there's not a lot of room for people being skeptical of the existence of these things.
Yeah.
Whereas with option 1, there is. It doesn't rule out that they do exist in some hidden tomb or whatever, you know. But yeah, cool.
All right. Okay, so we've got our basis for our world. Tweakable at any given time. Yay!
100%. Yeah, if we decide we want to lean very zombie heavy, we can suddenly change that. Yeah.
Well, again, it depends on how we progressed from the inciting incident, which again, going back and forth about, I don't know if, like, you know, how you agree on that or how you'd like to start. Let's see. Let's look at what the book says. The book says, create your character, build your world, review the moves, basic understanding of moves, how to resolve your character's actions and intent. Review the example of play, which I didn't.
You listen to that podcast. I think that's, you get the idea of how it works.
Yeah, pretty much. And swear an iron vow to play to see what happens. Yep. And then dig deeper.
It feels like maybe the next thing we want to do is kind of establish something about where we're starting out.
Yes.
I mean, we need to do that at some point, whether we do that now, but now seems as good a time as any.
Yeah, if you don't mind, like, let's do now.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, well, we can build off of the character notes that I put into the keeper from our long discussion.
Or we could, you know, the other options, we could kind of introduce the characters first, since we
could do that too. Yes. Okay.
Have those somewhat typed up.
Yeah, you have to get past all the questions that I wrote down from our from our discussion. I have to figure this out. Okay, so I think I have some of the ones that okay.
Yeah, I'm happy with those choices we made on all the truths, though, because we didn't go for like the max out option on all of them. I think we've got a good balance there, and yeah, it works.
Yeah, I mean, and again, tweakable, and if it helps out the story, then we will mention it or gloss over if it doesn't. Let me see. All right. Do you want to start? Do you have a handle on?
Sure.
Okay.
So we're gonna do characters first, or
what? If we weren't gonna do characters, what were we gonna do next?
Like a kind of starting location, region. In the world, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
let's do the characters.
Okay,
because I think that can come out from that, right?
Yes.
All right, so my character is called Yurek. He's a he, him. and he is a kind of older, I'm picturing someone in his 40s somewhere. He's been a warrior most of his life, since the age of a young man, but he's, to a greater or lesser extent, put that behind him now. He's not currently in, actively serving any particular warband or any particular leader. He's, I haven't exactly figured out what, but he's kind of doing something non-martial at the moment, which he's probably not particularly good at, I picture. And he's the kind of the inspirations for the type of character I mentioned to you, I think when we were talking on Discord, that there's a little bit of Clint Eastwood's character in Unforgiven there, where he's kind of, this old, in his youth, he was a name to be feared, a name that would be kind of, if it's an opposing warband and it's like, oh, this guy's on the other side, that could send a shiver down your spine or something. But now, now he's a little older, and he to some extent wants to put that in the past and bury it, but it kind of keeps coming back to haunt him, and he keeps, he'll get in trouble and fall back on those ways and so on. So that's kind of the picture there. And also, like, another big, like, media touchstone for me is the and I'll talk to you about this as well, it's like the First Law books by Joe Abercrombie, which is a series of like 9 novels now and some short stories. The initial 3, there's a trilogy, then 3 standalone books, and then another trilogy. And there are some characters in there that kind of, there's a region in that world that is kind of, has definitely like some pretty similar vibes to Ironsworn generally, and like a bunch of the characters come from that region, and there's this kind of warrior culture, and it's very much about interrogating that as the toxic masculinity of that, and the this feeling of these people have kind of wasted their lives fighting for something that they don't necessarily even believe in, just because that's kind of a way of life. And I don't want to like make this guy some kind of clone of one of the characters from those books, but there's definitely that's an influence there. So anyway, on the mechanical side of things, he has an iron of 3, a heart and a shadow of 2, and an edge and a wits of 1 each. So he's, a good fighter. He can be somewhat sneaky. Although I think he's a pretty quiet type, someone who speaks in short sentences and is as like to say nothing as anything else. He has some loyalty to him, which is why the heart score is 2. And then the next things are the assets. So his first asset is honor bound. So that enables him to get a bonus basically to like turning the tide in a fight, by envisioning how his vows give him strength. So yeah, the feeling of this is he was kind of a warrior all his life. He was bound to his comrades in arms, in particular one person that we're going to get to. His second asset is veteran. That allows him to get bonuses when he like burns momentum, which is a mechanical aspect of the game I'm sure we'll get to improve a result in combat, and he can get a bonus there. So in other words, he's been a warrior most of his life. And his last asset is one called spirit bound, which means he's haunted by someone's death you caused through actions or failures. And this allows him to consult with their spirit to secure an advantage or gather information and get bonuses on that. But in talking, I think we established that we kind of want to treat this as not so much supernatural, but he's psychologically haunted by this person. And, he's he's talking to them, but he's talking to them where in the same way that somebody in our world might be talking to, in scare quotes, their lost family member or friend or whatever. I don't think this, it's not like this person is manifesting in front of him as a ghost or anything like that. It's maybe not even speaking back to him except in his imagination, but it's so yeah, that's kind of where I want to go from there. And the person in that case is a comrade in arms of his named Tavik, who was the older brother of, and over to you, Matt.
So, yeah, Tavik was the older brother of Ajla, of Uldruk. Uldruk is the village slash hometown of Tavik and Ajla. She always says Ajla of Uldruk every time she introduces herself, because she is a traveling bard, and she's her, and she's been traveling for quite some time. She's also like around in her 40s, and she has a varied history of, being able to tell stories. She's on the search for stories ever since an old bard had settled in their hometown and told of his exploits following different war bands and different warriors for their adventures. And also Ajla and Tavik's father had been like something of a warrior himself, so of course it's like it was in the blood. And so their mother was also very proud of their father's prowess when he was active. And so wandering soul, I guess, because of her strong voice, she was encouraged by the old bard to head out and make her fortune. But she basically depends on the kindness of strangers. She's friendly. She enjoys sharing stories and news and things of note that have happened along the way. And yeah, she has, let's see, mechanically, she has a heart of 3. She has iron and wits of 2. Iron is stronger because the traveling life needs a hardy and scrappy soul. So I'll get to her assets in a minute. Her lowest stats are edge and shadow of 1. Okay. And then her assets, well, again, traveling, she has to be ready to, be ready to scrap. So brawler is her combat talent. So she can secure an advantage by engaging close quarters brawling, like punching, tripping, grappling. She's found herself in some tight spaces. So yeah, I mean, like being able to do this is important. But she's also and mainly a story weaver. So she's inspired, she's enlightened by her mainly her stories and possibly poems and songs. She does very little of that because the traveling life doesn't allow for having delicate instruments. So like the most maybe she'll have like a small pipe and tabor with her, but she doesn't take them out if more people just want to hear tales.
I dig it. It's like you can picture the Norse sagas or something like that, that kind of rich storytelling tradition of, or Greek epics, or
yeah, I mean, like, and not
Celtic bards and
right, well, not sonorous stuff necessarily. It's more like kind of like trying to build up this intimacy with her audience, and then not being grand about it. She's like all about like creating this, weaving this tale. And when you weave a tale, it's totally different from announcing a story or being telling an epic. It's more of a let me get here close to you with the fire crackling in the grate and all of us sitting and kneeling down together over whatever you choose to drink or eat. And let me tell you about so and such and what happened. So that is her way. Um, and then there's another asset that will not come into play until, well, we have our inciting incident. At least that's my intention. So do you want me to mention it now or you want me to wait?
Yeah, well, that's up to you. You could hold it back for surprise.
Yeah, let's hold it back for a surprise. That's always fun. So
I dig it. Okay.
yeah.
So we both wrote down like a whole bunch of questions for each other.
Yes.
Should we go through some of that now?
I think we can do well. Again, we can totally trim and crop this thing for post. So yeah, I mean, like if you want to go through like the questions that I pose to you, and I'll go through the questions that you pose to me, and then we'll
Or
look through.
We could even ask each other. And
yeah.
there are a few that spring to my mind immediately as well.
Okay.
So, like for example, what is Aldrich like? What kind of place is it?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, okay, so Aldrich is one of the bigger, one of the little bigger, the bigger villages. It's pretty self-sustaining, and it's big enough that the old bard that had met Ajla and Tavik's family, would stop by. I mean, like kind of like an old family friend, basically. And so it's large enough that they would get news and stories and, just hear like how this old bard was doing. And then finally, when, he got a little bit too old, he settled down and then would kind of hang around the family and Aldrich, and then just like, I mean, I guess he considered that his retirement. So, and he was able to sustain himself from uh, the fruits of his travels, and also from, again, being a very talented bard. I mean, he's able to depend on the kindness of strangers who become his friends. So.
Okay, let me have a look at some of the other questions I had here.
Sure.
Where did you put these? Did you say in the character notes thing or the?
There's a whole bunch of questions under character notes. Like you and I have columns. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, you've kind of put answers to the ones that I asked you before. Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to remember what's some of the things. So Aja's been traveling for most of her life. Does she travel between? Does she stick to mostly the kind of more traveled ways, the larger towns and villages, the more settled lands, or has she been off into the wilderness and explored far-flung settlements, or has it been more? Has she stuck to the safer areas?
Well, in her youth, she did settle into one of the larger communities, similar to Aldrich, but probably a little bit bigger. She won't mention to anyone what that town was called, because she got engaged to a patron, and the patron made it very clear that, her wandering feet was not going to be welcome for much longer. And so she ran away. And yeah, she's been kind of avoiding that place ever since. And she would, yeah, stick to like well-traveled roads, but occasionally she would skirt the wildlands, and also like maybe like find some smaller settlements that maybe appreciated her stories and just her friendly ways. it's amazing what can happen when you're a good listener. um so yeah, I think, yeah, for the most part she stayed more to the well-traveled roads, because it's easier to find her way rather than get lost in the wilderness and
Right.
hope
She's not an
to
explorer. She's a,
no, because I mean, again,
she
if
needs
she's
a community to be there, to be going to. Yeah.
right, to be able to support to support room and board. That's
Right.
usually the most important part. She can probably do some rough living, but not for too long.
They don't need too much in the way of a storyteller in a mining camp or a,
No, no,
yeah.
no.
Has she ever met, what are anyone of the firstborn? Has she encountered elves, giants, anything like that? Or
I mean, she would definitely avoid giants, especially because she'd be by herself. But I mean, like for the elves, I think again, they would be part of her stories,
Mhm.
but more of like the mysterious types that may not necessarily. Oh, well, okay. Let me remand that, because it's like now I'm thinking of something. She would cross their territory, but if she found herself lost nearby, she would sit on a rock, keep her back to the trees, and she would tell a story. Maybe not of what humans know of their people. Maybe not of humans being humans. But she would tell a story of possibly fantastical creatures that roam the land long ago, or maybe not at all. And she knew, she could feel eyes on her that were listening, but they would never approach. And maybe at the end of her story, she would find something to help her along to get to the next community or settlement.
And yeah, what was her relationship with Tavik? I think in terms of like my relationship with him, I think he's been dead for some years at this point,
Mhm.
maybe 5 years,
Okay.
or perhaps a little longer. But it's possible I don't know, were they close before that time? Had they not seen each other since they were kids? Were they? What's the relationship that like there? What's the background like?
I mean, I can't imagine, like, once Tavik fell in with the warband, I can't imagine him being like, yeah, I'm gonna go home on leave. You know what I mean? It's like not that kind of
Mm-hmm.
way. I think maybe he might have had news brought to the family, and maybe like just kind of let them know this is what's going on and what have you. Um, maybe, and you can correct me or change it up as you see fit, Rob. But I feel like when he died, there would at least be some personal possessions, maybe, that would go back home to the family that he acknowledged. But by that time, I don't think she was around. I think she had already started her own travels. Um, so maybe she might have heard something from, other bards or mercenaries maybe that came across her path, like, hey, did you hear about blah blah warband? And then, um, maybe she'd hear about her brother that way. So they had a great relationship when they were younger, but of course, like, his wandering feet, her wandering feet really didn't get their paths to cross very much afterwards, because I mean, again, whatever he was doing with the warband was not gonna probably cross too much into the settlements that she was going to
Right.
frequent, so
That was kind of going to be my next question: does she, as we start out, does she know he's dead?
Well, that was the thing that we were going back and forth on. I mean, like, I
Mm,
want to say, I mean, okay. So one of the first ideas that I came up with was, you are the one that's giving her the information. But it happened so long ago. Like, maybe she knew distantly that he died, but she didn't know, maybe you very much. Maybe she heard your name or whatever, but she didn't know the particulars of what
right.
happened to him.
Yeah, or just
So,
maybe she's not heard from anything of him in so long. She just assumes that he
yeah,
probably
exactly.
is. Yeah.
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 I mean, that's the way of their father. I mean,
Mhm.
that, like, their mother settled down in Aldrich, and yeah, she she paints a glow. So this is different, right? So she paints a glowing picture of his warrior prowess. She tells the tales of his adventures as he told them to her. He
Mm.
found it glorious. Um, Ajla will reserve judgment.
She tells the story, but maybe doesn't believe it herself. That kind of.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. That's what I'm thinking. And especially because, again, the old bard. I got to give this guy a name, because it's like, I can't just keep
There's a
calling him
big
the old
table
bard.
in the book somewhere.
No, no, no. Come on, who are you talking to? Dang it! I mean, hold on a second. Let me just figure this out. Old
Is
bard's
he
name.
still? Is he still in the picture? Is he long gone? Is he
Well, I mean, like, she hasn't necessarily been home since, like, God knows when.
right?
But I mean, if that was his retirement when she went off to start doing her thing,
Mm.
I mean,
He'd be
relative
super old by now.
age,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, he'd be super old by now, or, like, he's still doddering around. Who knows?
Hmm.
Um, okay, I'm just gonna give him like a really, really weird name. It's like his name was Saber. Putting in the character keeper. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Saber said, you have a great voice. You can tell tales like the best of them, including me, as he put it. So you should try this. You should try this life. I think you're very suited to this, and you have a taste and a talent for adventure. So with that, she went off and started doing what she did and what she's been doing. So, oh, and she's also very curious. And
Mm.
curiosity, as we well know, can get somebody in trouble. If she's always
Unknown for
searching out for
killing
another
cats.
well, right. If she's always searching out for another story, another tale to add to her repertoire, of course she's going to seek it out. Whether that is a good idea or not, that's not
Mm.
that doesn't
Yeah, and
necessarily.
she has that. She has that heart of three, and one of the things that heart represents is bravery, right? Is
Let me
that makes
see.
sense.
Charm, loyalty, or courage.
Mm.
There we go. Yep. So that makes sense. Hold on. Nope. Character notes. Okay. So, any other questions for Ajla?
I'll probably have one or two more, but let's
Yeah. Let's go to
do some of yours for me.
yeah, let's go to Yurik. Uh, okay. So, we were talking about how Yurik belonged to a prominent warband with
Mm.
Ajla's brother. Was the warband known by a banner, like a creature, or a leader? Like, what's the warband's name, or the leader's
Yeah,
name, if it
let's
makes a
figure this
difference?
out. I think it was a leader.
Okay.
Um, let's see if we can get this guy name. And because me being me, I will use a table.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to even roll some dice. So I've
That's
come
great.
up with. No, I don't like that one. Shekhar. Yeah, that works. Shekhar. So he was yeah. So I picture the warbands as being something where, you know, in the autumn the harvest would finish, and then the warband would roll through and like round up young men, even young women. I guess maybe we have women warriors in this world. That makes sense.
Yes, we do.
And you know, take them off for that winter's campaign, and you know, that's the campaign season. And those that were just kind of in the line, lightly armed, would come back in this, or if they weren't dead, they would come back and after the season and like return to their farms and their homesteads and whatever. Those who were good at it, found a taste for it, would kind of stay on it became their profession. And I think Yurik and Tavik were of that breed, right? So they, you know, left their homes and did this full time. And these would end up being the guys who are, you know, wearing a chainmail shirt and carrying a nicely forged sword and a shield, and you know, they're not just in a peasant's smock and with a stick. They're the more elite professional soldiers.
The series that I told you about, the Voldemar series, the mercenary ancestress of the sorceress bound to the blade, the mercenary, that book by the sword literally goes through all the different things that mercenary recruits go through, like, you know, how they form their groups, like what recruitment's like, you know, even down to the idea that, you know, when you first start as a recruit, you're only given a percentage of any monies earned and stuff, and you're essentially paying off your horse and your sword. I mean, like your equipment basically. And then once you're vested in it, like after a year or two of being in the mercenary band, then you are fully invested, and then you start getting full shares of any payment that comes in. So I mean, it's just really involved, and it's like this is just what it sounds like, even though it's a war band versus mercenaries. I mean, this is just really interesting. So with mercenaries, or at least that I know of in this book, the bands or the group, the whatever they're called, the crews are called by war bands and then something. So like, is it like shikars, you know, skirmishers? I mean, something, you know, like how there's like kind of like a verb name, you know, after the war band leader's name. Yeah, it's like shikars, skirmishers. I mean, shikars, I don't know, whatever. Whatever you want to call it.
I'm gonna dig something up now. Yeah, so I picture that they're kind of, you know, they're fighting for territory, resources, that kind of thing with other communities. Shekar's devils.
Ooh, okay, I like it. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, they weren't mercenaries per se. They were, you know, nominally fighting for political reasons, defense and offense, quarrels, you know, vows sworn to defend honor or avenge wrongs or
Who was there?
settlements.
So yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing, like who's footing the bill? Like,
I think the settlements that they're nominally fighting on behalf of are taxed, right, to pay for this, in terms of both in terms of like people being recruited to fight, and in terms of, you know, paying for equipment and that kind of things. So
yeah, it's very seldom that a mercenary crew would be like completely sponsored or patroned by like a big political head. In the book,
but
yeah, like in the series, like you see that they are eventually, but I mean, like, it's just interesting because it's like, you know, you take the jobs where you can, and usually it involves war. So there you go.
Right. So yeah, maybe Shakar is kind of he's a war leader for a chief of some kind, right? Or
Yeah.
or a, you know, some kind of local ruler.
I mean, you don't have to develop that, like, you know, completely.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
if you're,
we can kind of get to that, and I think, you know, right.
would
This
he
is
know? Would he
probably,
be interested in that? I mean, seriously. I mean, like, you know, like he's told where to
yeah.
go. He's whatever. I mean, like, you know, okay. So this leads into my next question, because I wasn't sure what I was asking when I asked this. Who has the shady, bloodthirsty reputation? Is it Shakar's devils, or is it Urek himself?
I think it's Yorick himself. Like, I don't. Shakar's devils were, you know, they fought and they were tough, and they won battles and they lost battles, but they weren't any better or worse than any other war band. I think Yorick had a reputation as a fighter that happened to be in that war band, but it was his name that was the, you know, the one to be, and people may have a grudge toward Shakar's devils. They may have been on the right or the wrong side of them, you know, civilians.
Yeah. Oh, so that's another thing, because I mean, again, if you in any way, and this is in general, if you in any way damage civilians, they will take it out of you anyway. You will not have a safe passage going back. So if you ruin like the civilians, then they're pretty much going to take it out on you. If you come back their way.
Yeah, maybe the war that he was fighting as part of is kind of, you know, it's in the past now.
Right.
Not that necessarily everyone's forgotten it. It's not been fought anymore.
Yeah.
The quarrel that started it is over, but the people who lost sons and brothers and sisters and whatever are still holding grudges, for sure.
Yep. They usually do. I don't know if I asked this question or you asked it of yourself. What does iron mean to you?
Iron means the better class of weapon, right? That's the weapon of a warrior, is made of iron. And the armor of a warrior. It's a badge of your status. If you're like a common soldier who, you know, is dragged along for a season of fighting, but you're cannon fodder, really, you don't have iron armor, you don't have a sword, you maybe have a spear with an iron tip on it, but that's going to be the extent of it. If you're a true warrior, you have a suit of mail, you have a helmet, you have a shield with an iron boss, you have an iron sword. So it's a symbol of status. And man, you know, I don't want to say manhood, because if we're establishing a order, there could be women fighting alongside him as well. I don't know what the term is, but warriorhood.
Okay. I'm marking in orange the stuff that I think we're trying to answer. There we go. See. This is also a marker for me, so this way I know like what you've said. Okay. Havoc met you away from his home village.
I think we met.
Did you meet before or during like Shakar's devils?
I think we met there. We met as comrades in arms there. I don't think he's ever met Angela before. He's
I don't think
maybe
so.
he's
Well,
maybe aware she exists. Knew that
yeah.
Tavik
Well, I
has
mean,
this
he
guy.
might have said, yeah, Tavik, I mean, again, they had a good relationship. So maybe there
Mm,
were some fun stories about them being
right,
kids
right.
or, that sort of thing. Because remember, not just because of what she had to do to survive while traveling, being a bard, but she had to have some sort of scrapper reputation even before
Mm,
she started to
yeah,
make
yeah,
sure
I
that she
like
could
it.
survive. So, I
Yeah,
mean, like maybe he would tell goofy stories about how like she would beat up, well, some of the neighbor kids. I don't know,
right.
something weird like that. Um, so he's aware of her, but like not like necessarily knowing. Although, I mean, I'm sure he would have told you his home village, which is why if you did meet her, I mean, I hate using the tavern example because everybody meets in a tavern, but
Yeah,
it would be the
we're not
most
going to do
sense
that.
of where she would be
Well, we
telling
might,
these
but
stories. Um, then hearing the name of the town would spark a, oh, wait a minute,
hmm,
and like,
hmm,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And they're probably I imagine it's if these were towns that the town he came from, the town that Europe came from, are obviously part of the same political alliance.
mhm.
If they're drawing recruits from both of those places, then it's probably a place that Yurik's heard of at least,
Well,
probably
yeah,
even visited.
maybe, but
Doesn't know well, maybe, but yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's in the same area, maybe.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
he knows it.
Hmm. How do you think, okay, so this kind of leads into this other question. How do you think Tavik would have described, well, hold on, let me see. I guess not, because I mean, like we're establishing that he left, like Tavik left the family
Mm,
before, or yeah, before Ajla set off on her own journeys. And so therefore they probably didn't meet again. They probably like made a,
yeah,
like, yeah.
if you're good with that, I think that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
Didn't meet up with Tavik again after leaving leaving home. I just want to make sure leaving home.
and what does she think of what he did for the life he chose?
I mean, again, reserving her own judgment about it because between the bard, between Saver telling tales and between their mother, like giving the golden picture of what their father did, I mean, it's kind of like it makes sense because like you hear that and it's kind of like this is what you aspire to, be as good
Mm,
as your father, and then also and you know that bardic talent didn't come from just nowhere. I mean, like her mom had a little bit of it too.
mm,
And then with Tavik being in their village, town, whatever, being very good at it, like he had like martial ability, it was natural that he would go off and join something like Shikar's Devils, or maybe even another like mercenary band or something, something very similar. So not a surprise, that he would do it, you know.
but does she think he kind of threw his life away, or
No, not really. I mean,
hmm,
they would always talk as kids of leaving this place, you know, and making their way and having adventures of their own when the adventures were covered in glory. Of course, what does that say? There's a saying in that series, and it's like it was so good. It was like some things equals glorious funerals. I cannot remember the whole phrase off the top of my head, but it was beautiful and it was correct.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, again, no judgment because she was definitely not going to be settling in for the village life, and he definitely wasn't. So what else was he going to do? He's not going to be cut out for a farmer. He's not going to be cut out to even be the blacksmith. So, all right. Do you want to get into the into like a big question?
Sure. Throw it at me.
How did Tavik die? Did Yurik have something to do with it?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think that's even stated in that spirit bound asset that he has.
Okay.
That he at very least blames himself, if not like is legit responsible for it. Yeah, so someone whose death you caused through your actions or failures. So yeah, he died. I mean, he must have died in war, right? And I think Yurik definitely feels like he let him down. We had this interesting thing we were talking about a couple of days ago where they were like they had names given to them.
Yes.
Yes.
I think, well, obviously, like, you guys would have earned your names.
Right. As a warrior, you earn a
here we go.
Nickname that
flashback to a naming ceremony for Yurik and Tavik after a particularly hard skirmish. That's like
even
the last
maybe
thing.
their first, that one of their first ones where they kind of earned the notice of their superiors.
Shakar. Yeah.
Shakar himself.
So I mean, do you agree with like what I wrote down, or do you want to change it? I don't care if you do, because
is it the last one there? Yeah,
the very last one.
So Tavik the wolf and Yurik the hawk. So we kind of, the idea there was that they're kind of both animal names. But there's also implications there of Tavik being kind of loyal and steadfast, and Yurik being
quick kill,
perhaps even cruel,
right,
merciless.
Wait, for Tavik the wolf, you said loyal and
loyal and steadfast. And
thank you.
They're like a pack animal there.
Right. Well, definitely of the pack. Like definitely thinking like pack. And then hawk, quick kill, cruel,
kind of merciless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you put in another bit in here that he's not going to start the fight, but he will finish it. So
I think that's very true of him now. I think in his youth he would have started a fight when he was younger. I think he was the kind of person that had that burning in him to prove himself in that way.
Sure.
Any perceived insult. He's a little smarter than that now, but if somebody's going to push it, he knows how to win a fight.
Yeah.
And he knows there's a practicality. I think that he knows the foolishness of like leaving someone who might come and stab you in the back later.
Oh, how do we do that? I don't. There's probably a term for it, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'm just gonna put practicality. You'll know what it means. Okay. What promise? It doesn't have to be the vow necessarily, unless you want to. What promise or vow did Tavik have you make before he died? Or you want to play for that? You want to like kind of like work that out a little bit?
I mean, I think I need to figure it out.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, like it was just one of those things I threw at you because there's quite a few of these that like will not come up until like we get past the inciting incident.
But I feel like it may be something to do with Ajla, that whether it's to give her something or tell her what happened to him, or
well, that was the other thing that the part of what was the other question? Shoot. Okay, so for Tavik's death, give me a second. I'm trying to find it. Hold on. For Tavik's death, did you get something? I mean, like personal possessions were sent home. Did you get anything from Tavik's death that you wouldn't have been able to get unless he was dead? Like, did Yurik withhold something as the other things were being sent home or sent back to Aldrich.
Yeah, I like that.
And what would Yurik have kept? Oops.
I guess it's some kind of talisman or totem, right? It's
Right.
an iron ring that he wore on a string around his neck, or something along those lines, or even a ring he wore on his finger. Maybe that's the thing he swore a vow upon.
Because that puts in a little wrinkle, like kind of like keep that in the back of your head. Oh, why did it?
Oh,
Hold on, shit. Yurik can't. I somehow disappeared, and I'm okay. Yurik kept.
here's an interesting possibility.
Go ahead.
It's a ring.
Yeah.
And Yurik now wears it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Ursula's going to recognize it.
Oh yeah. Ursula will recognize. That will be a very, very bad sticking point.
And I think that's kind of, that's probably something that's going to come up pretty early on, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, if you're you recognize the village name, you recognize her name perhaps, because Tavik did mention it, and her in passing of like getting to know each other as friends. You tell all sorts of shit, and then in that maybe you feel brave and you approach her, like maybe she's in the same place that you find yourself in, and maybe you try to introduce yourself and she's thinking you're a fan. But you try to like work in the whole Tavik thing, and then she notices somebody's got something they shouldn't.
Or even, I'm just thinking an alternate take would be that, he doesn't approach her until she gets in trouble.
Right. Well, that was the other
incident of where, and because he's like seen her and maybe figured out who she is.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a slow thought of like, wait, do I know?
Yeah.
And then,
but then when something happens that she gets into trouble, he steps in because
I mean,
of that
again,
connection.
Working into that inciting incident because of her curiosity and wanting to know about getting another tale, getting another story. She sniffs out a story. Let me see. Yeah. So things that you've answered, I've marked in orange, and then the rest of it, like,
I
don't think you can
give some
answer
thought to like exactly how he died.
Yeah.
Because I think that's not something he's going to tell you right away.
Right.
So I will give that some thought.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Especially the fact that he's at fault for it, right? That's
well, that, but also, I mean, like, the sticking point's going to be when she recognizes the ring on your finger, when you two meet extended, and then she recognizes the ring on your finger, and then what the hell are you doing with that ring?
I just thought of a good idea, which I'm not going to tell you, and it'll may come up when we get to that point.
It's fine. I mean, because again, there's some things that are going to be happening that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fun to have like a surprise that we can surprise each other, right?
I love that. I do. So going back to what he's been doing, if he's doing stuff that's non-martial and he's not particularly good at it, what do you think that is?
I think he's trading of some kind. He's, maybe he has a wagon and an old horse, and goes between a couple of towns, and what does he do? He will fix you need a knife sharpened, you need you want to buy and sell some pots and pans and those kind of things. That's what he does. just traveling. Yeah, I think traveling between some of the towns in the havens, I guess, and small time peddler, effectively, not a good living, and he's not particularly good at it because he doesn't have he's not a salesman. He doesn't have he's not going to talk anyone into a deal they don't want to make, right? He doesn't pressure people.
That's not his way. Yeah.
Yeah. He knows how to put pressure on somebody, but not in a charming way. Right?
No. Although that could be hilarious.
Right. But he's that's exactly the kind of thing he's trying not to do.
Right. But I mean, just like he's holding himself back from being his true self. And it's just so awkward. I mean, like, some people are probably like, oh, I'm just going to give you money because I feel sorry for you, man.
Yeah. Or there's I think that situation comes up where it's like, there's that conflict of, I'm hungry and this guy doesn't want to buy, what I have to offer. He doesn't need a knife sharp and he doesn't need this.
Yeah.
I could so easily take what I want from him.
Right.
But
maybe
I'm trying not to be that person.
Right. But because of it being ingrained from all that and being you, there's probably some bit where your interaction leads into the hawk being very visible through your eyes or your body language, and they're gonna do it anyway because they're scared shitless now.
Yeah, or they're gonna, they could get intimidated, or they could back off, or
I think there's still the possibility of intimidation, regardless of how long it's been that you, stopped. And was it Kavik's death that caused you to stop?
I think it was certainly a pivotal part of it. If not the straw that broke the camel's back, it was like a significant step along the way. I think he's, of an age, he's fought enough battles that he's lost the lust for glory, because he's seen things like what happened to Tavik many times, and he knows that it's, war's not a glorious thing.
Okay. Makes sense. And some of these other questions, it's like, I can't answer just yet because I mean, like, I think we're establishing that he hasn't met her yet. Like, he doesn't know Ashla. He doesn't.
No.
He's heard of her. He's heard of her, but
he knows Tavik had a sister. He knows probably her name.
Yeah.
Knows some stories about her youth.
Yeah.
That he kind of half remembers, but he's never met her before. And I don't think she knows anything about him, right?
I was going to ask, Village Boys, because I mean, again, he didn't meet you.
I think
he didn't meet you until after he joined the warband.
And I think if it comes up that, or when it comes up that Urek tells you about his past, you'll recognize, even assuming that by that point he hadn't, if he mentioned, I fought for this warband, which I forgot the name of now, because Shikar's Devils.
Shikar's Devils.
Then Ashla would know, that's Tavik's warband, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he's probably going to have told you he knew your brother before that. But still, you would know the name without not so much knowing him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they probably have like a reputation of their own. So, like, Mother or Bard was probably like, like, what an honor, like getting into like Shikar's Devils and shit. So I mean, that whole thing. Okay, hold on. Wait. Oh. I think, just breeze through your column and then my column and see if I answered anything. at least like stuff that we can answer before we get to the exciting part, or maybe not so exciting part, leading to the exciting part, you know.
And one thing I didn't really give any thought to
Mm-hmm.
yet is in the rulebook, it says, if I can find it now, you should start your first session with up to 3 background bonds. These are people or communities that you share bonds with.
Where do we put that in the Ironlands tab, you think? Or
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And you
what the hell?
there are progress tracks for bonds
Okay.
that you can, I want to say that also feeds into XP, although I know the rules for bonds work a little differently between Ironsworn and Starforged. So I probably need to like go back and read that section of the book again. But I hadn't given this a lot of thought, so maybe it's not something we want to do now, but we can introduce it in as and when it comes up, perhaps, or we can think about it and write it down, and we can talk about it when it becomes relevant.
Yeah, I mean, we're well, again, it's like mechanically, narratively, how do we want to play it? I mean, like we have several choices. We can either, you know, do like in the between where we narrate the past, you know, like as a flashback or something like that, and then we do our own, you know. Or if it's a particular scene, you know, like we do each other's NPCs, you know, which is fine.
Or you know, even if it just comes up in the terms of the story, like we're going to the settlement. Is this somewhere we know somebody, or is this a settlement we have been to before and have some kind of bond with, or that?
Do we? I mean,
could ad hoc it in that way, or
well, I mean, like that's my question. I mean, like, you know, do we have to have it delineated out right off the bat? I mean,
I don't think so.
Okay, because you know, my thought is this. You know, it's very mechanical enough, and as we see, like all the progress tracks. I mean, you know, we could label each of these tracks any way we choose, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if we go and you want to engage somebody that you knew, you know, we could make that a progress track and NPC it all the way or whatever, and then we would decide either narrating ourselves in a flashback or narrating each other's NPCs, you know, so it could go either way. And then
that's interesting.
Or like even in the engagement of, like I said, there's that town that Asha doesn't want to talk about and will not mention because there's somebody that's probably looking, well, not looking for her, but I mean, like if she steps into town again, there's going to be problems. So that could be definitely something that could lead to progress by avoidance, you know, something like that. And like for whatever reason, Urek wants to go there, but she doesn't want to go. So I mean,
it even says in the book that you can flesh out these background bonds later.
Okay, good. I mean,
I'm going to give it some thought, like after we finish this session 0, and then
no, it's fine.
Then we can maybe have some ideas sketched out.
Sure.
When we actually start playing.
Well, I mean, again, it's like I mean, the inciting incident itself is already jam-packed full of possibility of like, okay, just before the inciting incident, and then the aftermath. Oh shit. And then where do we go from there? That's going to be like the major question. And that with how do we get to where we're going to go for that goal is going to be interesting because there's going to be many different ways, you know,
totally
to do it. So,
and the other thing is background Val. I think I know what Urek's is.
Okay.
Which is to kind of make things right with Tavik. And that even plays into how.
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
So the idea is you kind of have a background Val, which is like your overarching primary motivation or ultimate goal for your character.
Oh.
Part of your character's backstory, or maybe about 20 years ago.
Okay. So,
or one that's reaction to a more recent event.
okay.
And this has a rank of extreme or epic. And it could take, a long time to complete this.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, because we have the drop down boxes that pick out, what is it? Is it epic? Is it
right? Yeah, and basically that
troublesome, dangerous, formidable, extreme, epic? That's great.
And that determines like how quickly it fills in. So like every time you make progress on a quest, those are different levels of them, and you kind of it takes more of those I'm making progress landmarks to complete an epic quest than it does to complete a troublesome one, for example.
Got it. Okay, well, I mean, that's interesting because, I mean, the character keeper will allow us to like literally fill it in. So in background val, you can change that to whatever your background val is. I mean, is that something that's determined before?
You just decide, yeah, right. You say and it specifically says that your background one should be epic or extreme.
Oh,
which are the two most difficult ones, right? They're in order of complexity, not complexity, but
there's
ranked.
Brain does not want to work. Background vow is different from the inciting incident. So how does that work?
Yes. Okay, so your background vow is kind of what does your character want? What's their ultimate goal? Now, I think in the case of yours, it may be we may cheat a little and make it something that comes out of that inciting incident. If
that's what I'm saying. I mean,
along the same lines as me, I think that's fine.
Okay. I mean, because I kind of know exactly where it's gonna go, but then I don't know how. I mean, you know what? It can be epic. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, yes, no, it can be epic. Ooh. Let me see if I can do this. And that actually would change one of the assets too. So let's see. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, so background val. It's like
yeah. So the way the vowels work or the progress tracks work is that you have an amount of progress that's like 0 through 10. And when you want to try and complete whatever it is, whether it's a combat or a quest or a journey or the various types of different progress track you can have, you roll against that difficulty, or you use that difficulty as your action die value, and then you roll the 2d10s to see like how you came out. So obviously the more progress you've made, the more likely you are to succeed at whatever the thing is.
Interesting.
But the rank from troublesome through epic is like how many little bits of progress you have to make in order to increase that rank from like 0 to 10.
So the progress is the actual like level itself, and then the ticks are to get to the next level.
Is exactly, yeah. And I think for a troublesome, you feel like for every milestone you hit on that thing, you fill in 2 complete progresses. You don't worry about the ticks. And it's all the way down to like an epic one is 1 tick per bit of progress. So then, and 4 ticks makes 1 complete progress box. So it's like you got to do 40 things to get it all the way to the end. But you don't have to get it all the way to the end before you attempt to complete it, right? It's just, are you willing to risk it when you're not at a 10 out of 10? You can risk it at a 6 out of 10 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
You're obviously way less likely to succeed.
Interesting. Ooh, okay. Well, definitely creates story. I'll say that.
I don't think I'm explaining that super well, but yeah, like for example, if you're in a fight and you're losing some health and you're like 6 out of 10 progress in that fight, and you're thinking, right, I don't want to carry on, so let's try and finish it now.
You can run. I mean, like as far as I can tell, like one of the moves is to run, and then you just that's
or you can try and do something quick to finish the fight.
There's a thing called end the fight, yeah, and the fight.
Right, yeah, and that's exactly it. That's like that's the thing where you roll it against the progress track
And the fight. Yep.
value. And so the less progress you've completed, the less likely that is to be successful.
Got it. Okay.
If you've got it all the way to 10, then you've got to roll super badly to fail.
Very possible with me. We know how I roll.
Yeah, you would literally have to roll a double 0 on your d10s to fully fail that.
Polyhedral die don't like me. Just saying. Okay.
So
cool.
yeah, are we kind of ready to wrap this session 0 up, you think?
Guess. I mean,
We
there's
have
some
our
things
world
I'm looking
built.
at and I'm like,
oh,
go ahead.
I was just thinking the one thing we didn't do is like
Bonds? No, we
or even
discussed
just
bonds.
we could do the location in the session 1. I'm just wondering if there is these descriptions of like the broad areas of the Ironlands.
Okay.
The havens, the regions. There's 9 regions, and maybe it'll be a good idea if we just like establish which one we're in.
Sure. Okay.
I kind of feel like maybe the havens, which is the
well, as you say, you like, Uric is
yeah, right.
peddling his wares in the havens right now.
unless he's doing it in a slightly, not the most dangerous place. But yeah, okay. So we can say we're in the havens. It's like features, rolling hills and rocky bluffs, pockets of dense wood, thick with shadow, walled settlements, verdant heaths, wide rivers navigated by wary boatmen, long harsh winters.
Because for the inciting incident that I was thinking of, it's got to be something that requires them to leave the safer place and then go out where
exactly
it's happening. And she's curious, going out for a story, and then you are, I don't know, like maybe you are,
I think,
trying to puzzle over,
going to be
like maybe he's gonna puzzle out like where she, like, where he knows her from or what he remembers.
Well, I think even once he figures out who she is, he's going to, like, part of what his vow to be at peace with Tavik is going to involve looking out for her, right? Because that's part of how he can make up to Tavik what he did.
I mean, I'm already seeing the narration of, like, both of us, well, each in our own way, rolling into town, and then, you having an epiphany about who she is. And then that's when you have your non-supernatural conversation with Tavik. And you can choose how you want that to look. Are you always picturing the same place that you see or talk to this aspect of yourself that's Tavik? Or are you just kind of like nebulously talking to yourself?
Yeah, I think the latter, right? He's kind of, maybe he's picturing him to some extent, but he's almost like picturing him in whatever environment he's in, right? As though he were, if they're in a tavern, he's picturing him sitting there with a mug of ale, right?
That's so cool.
If they're like camped out under the stars, he's picturing him sitting at the fire with him, or
love that.
He's
it's
like they would have done, when they were comrades. Yeah. Cool.
No, that's awesome. Oh, so much stuff. So much stuff. And we haven't even gotten to like
we haven't even got to like the first thing.
Yeah, because the first, I mean,
but I think we've got a good basis there, and we can figure out, okay, these are the things we need to like cross the T's and dot the I's on before we like hit table next time. How does that sound?
That sounds fine, because you're going to have to lead me on, like, what am I looking at again?
Right.
For starting, I mean, like, what specific mechanics, the first question would be, what specific mechanics are we going to use for the starting? Because I mean, again, we're already starting off narratively thinking. I mean, I do not picture, we don't need to ask the Oracle. We kind of know what's gonna happen.
We have an idea of what the general thing is. We want it to be in media res. There's going to be this situation where Ajla gets into trouble.
And so
we have to fight or flee.
Well,
Is that?
So, okay, that the choice is how far in media res are we? Right. So are we like
Yeah, I
right
think
at the you're yelling at me because it's like, we're trying to escape from God knows what or whom, or are we like at the like we're rolling in, like we're narrating, like we're rolling into town in our own way, and then she's at the tavern, or I hate the tavern because it's like everybody
Right.
uses a freaking tavern. Anyway,
My vote is we do a little bit of establishing of that stuff, but
sure.
we start like bang in the middle
Bang.
of the action. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, bang in the middle of
More
the
fun,
action
right?
would be, well, bang in the middle of the action would
Bang at the
be,
start of the action.
yes, because that's like she's snuck away and the ritual is happening and she hears a voice saying, it's like, grab the sword, and she grabs the sword. She might be, well, captured, but then maybe you notice that she's like able to hold her own, like not necessarily with weapons, but like with um
Yeah.
brawling, using her brawling skill, and you're like, whoa. Maybe that's like,
So
also
do these kind of, maybe these are even like somehow connected to the notion of Iron Priests. That could be interesting.
I wonder, because I mean, again, the history of what that last asset is. I mean, it is, yeah,
And
it's,
they've got hold of this artifact.
oh shit. Yes, that
And they
sounds
are
cool.
going somewhere to do something with it, or
there's okay, so one of the
she
things that we
sees it
well,
and it
one of the
calls to
things
her, yeah.
well, one of the things that we were trying to establish was the idea that maybe this ritual was going to be about the blade. Again, we could just strike this shit in post, whatever. That the blade was going to go to its next bearer. Right. Somehow, like, well, why the hell do they have the ritual in the woods? I don't know. But anyway, like, this person could only meet here. And so therefore, like, maybe, and then this has to do with the Iron Priest, because I think in one of the questions was like, like, what is your involvement, or was there any involvement with this blade cult? Because it started off with the thinking about the blade cult, and now you're talking about Iron Priest, which is another cool wrinkle. I think it's awesome, but I mean, like,
I think, yeah, those two things are maybe the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, maybe this is like something relatively new that
I'm gonna put this on the
Yurik
side.
doesn't have a ton of experience with. He doesn't know what these guys' deal is.
But the thing is, it has to have been, well,
I mean, it has to have been going on, yeah.
it has to have been going on for quite a while because of the magic that's involved.
It does.
I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's shadowy. It's really cool. But I mean, okay, Iron Blade Cult.
Okay, yeah, no, I kind of dig
Iron
that. But maybe they're like they're almost like an elite of an elite within warrior circles, that they're, I'm thinking of some of those kind of martial cults they had in ancient Rome, where you would get initiated into this thing, and that's something Yurik never did.
Well, that plays into your interest in exploring the whole religion part, I guess. If you want to do that. I mean, again,
yeah, that these people were like, there were probably people that were in this cult on both sides of the war.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna put this on the side, like, of our character notes, like Iron Blade Cult with Iron Priest, elite martial religious cult, and you can try to finagle that however you want, because again, I mean, like, she's just out for the story, like, oh, like, look, like, observing a ritual, and the blade calls out, or
yep.
whispers.
Yeah, so did Ajla kind of follow these guys?
Yeah, because
she saw them
yeah
in the town, and she followed them, and maybe Yurik is following her.
I saw priests or cultists followed them. Yurik followed her. And again, it's like, do you where in the mix, or do you flashback?
Mm,
Saying of like again, us rolling in, like this whole thing of like where she performs, she tells stories someplace, and
that's where he
the
saw
name.
her in town,
Yeah,
and
so
that's where she saw
Eric
them.
saw Ashla telling stories.
And that's,
Where
yeah,
she's
that's where she
from.
saw these guys, and for whatever reason, she followed them.
They both saw the cultists.
I'll let you explain exactly why she would have done that. But
What do you mean?
why she would have followed them.
Oh, she would
Like,
totally follow. Well, one, because they're interesting. She's never
mm,
really seen them before. And she, again, curious that it's like, ooh, a tail. Tail I can tell.
But maybe even then there was like something that called to her.
Yeah.
Maybe she saw caught a
Why?
glimpse of the sword.
Yeah. Why did she follow? Glimpse of sword.
But I like, my gut feel is we kind of hit play at the point where.
Oh, wait, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, at the point where this has happened, and
At
she's
the point
touched
of
the
leaving.
thing.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
she's touched the thing.
She's touched the thing, and she accidentally cuts herself on the blade, and the blood, calling to blood, is what.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
bang.
bang.
That's when like dice hit table, or
Yeah, when she's
whatever. Yeah, I like it.
trying to get the sword. Accidentally cut. Yeah.
And in the meantime, I'm going to give some thought to bonds, and yeah, that's about it, right? I'm going to write up my background vow properly, but I think it's basically to like make peace with himself slash Tavik.
I mean, that definitely takes care of like the path, and then like with her,
Maybe there's even, yeah, there's some interesting possibilities there, like his own guilt over it. Maybe the person that actually is more directly responsible for Tavik's death. I'm just thinking like all the ways I can be ticking boxes on that vow. It's like,
yeah,
there's like a whole bunch of things, right? Looking after Ajla. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things there.
That looks like that just sounds so much easier than what I don't. I mean,
yeah, but yours, if yours is what I think it is, it's the one that's like, it's the impulse for us to go somewhere and do something and seek out truths and so on, right? So it has the narrative drive to it where, yeah, I like that.
I mean, it could lead from. Ooh, I'm just gonna write this out because like while I'm trying to think about it out loud. So progress is gathering stories. Each story is a different place. And succeed again, talking to myself, succeeding a goal, which leads to the next story on the way to the place of unbinding. Okay. Again, just kind of like wheels turning, too many wheels turning. But yeah. And then somewhere along this journey, because there's going to be a whole lot of then we will be introducing somebody else in the mix.
Cool.
I think so many layers. It's beautiful.
That's it. We want lots of threads to follow up, and that's what we need. I think one of the problems in this, like one of the ways you can go wrong in Ironsworn is like setting too high a complexity on a vow / quest that you don't have like enough things you can do along the way to like tick boxes to ever get there. So it needs to be like something with a bunch of, you can spin out a bunch of threads for the big thing, and then for the smaller ones, they can be simpler things.
Yeah. I mean, and again,
the side quests along the way, because one of the things I say is this is like a side quest generator.
Yes, because this, again, it's not about the goal, the destination, it's the journey.
Mm, exactly.
What if the okay, I'm gonna write this down now. What if the
what if the real epic quest is the side quest you do along the way?
Yeah. Well, what if the destination isn't what was originally thought? Because in play, as we well know, shit changes all the time. So if the destination is legendary, I mean, it's so easy to get that messed up and then find out, ooh, that was probably a mistake. But again, we only find out by going through different places. It's almost like it's like a scavenger hunt. Where
one thing leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing. Yeah, very much so.
And that's what I'm writing down. Okay. And I'm still not clear exactly what I'm going to be doing before the next time we meet, which we should discuss now, because it's like, if we don't, we're not going to get it done.
I think let's give some, I'm going to give some thought to like bonds. It says like start with 2 or 3 bonds this can be to like an NPC or a community. So these will be people that can like, we can meet, or they can help us, or we can go to them. They can provide us assistance, or those kind of connections. I think that's about it. And then like laying out what that epic vow is. That's your background, epic or extreme vow. That's your background vow.
Well, I have an idea for one of the bonds. Especially if in the midst of or in the aftermath of the inciting incident, that Ajla notices what Urek has on his finger. I would say one of the things that could be a bond is like, taking him back to Uldruk.
And I figure like Urek probably has maybe a comrade who's still still a warrior. That's somebody that we could run into at some point. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, hold on. Uldruk, former Shakar's.
I'm just thinking in terms of like the bonds that I could set up for myself.
Fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because basically he was probably one of the ones that was like either the most jealous of you, or the most, like, it would be like one of two things: the most jealous of you or the most admiring, and then sees you now in your peddling state and goes, what the fuck, man?
What have you become? Yeah. What happened to you?
Love it. Yeah, what happened to you, man? You just went downhill. What or ooh, this is good. The hawk's not so great after all, is he?
Somebody who's had his wings clipped.
Yeah, and he just gets all in your biz snatch about it, and just being either annoying, or he will be aggressive about it. So, the hawk taken down. Beautiful. Or is he?
Oh, he's still got a little fire in the grate still.
Well, and again, I'm striking this in post or whatever, but I mean, like, you see the header on that character notes sheet. That's like, I'm tired of seeing youngins, like, get all the guts and glory. So we need to start making this clear that we're not dead after fucking 30. Thank you, assholes. I hated that tweet. I can't believe somebody posted that shit, even as a joke. I'm like, I
think I might have missed that one. Probably for the best.
It is for the best. I just was like, I forget what I tweeted out as a reply, but I was livid that day. I was like, are you fucking kidding me, you little shit? Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so when do we want to start this?
Sometime next week.
Yeah, no, that would be
Let's
good.
figure out a slot. Like this time works for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like for right now, the summer schedule will allow me to do this like at 6 o'clock on a Thursday, because I'm like, oh, good. Wait, hold on. I can do it on the 23rd. I can do it next week, but then Rachel's Game of the Strange is wrapping up, where yeah, she was introducing Amanda to the wonders that is the cipher system mechanics. And Amanda was malapropping all over the damn place, malaphoring all over the damn place, and it was glorious. I loved it. I wish we had recorded it, but it didn't. It sucks. So we're finishing that up on the 30th, but definitely next week, and then
sure.
we have to do like a bi-weekly or whatever.
If we have to like ad hoc schedule it, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean,
until we can get into a rhythm of it, and who knows? Maybe we don't like it, and it runs a couple of sessions. And
I
hope it doesn't happen. But
well, here's my thought. Doesn't work out as play. I mean, like now I have a ton of fodder over here for writing a story.
We've got something here.
Yeah. So it's cool. That's cool. All right. So we're gonna say the 23rd. Yeah, 23rd at 6. That's fine, because what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna extend this this Zoom, and then it goes into my schedule. So 23rd. Now we know how to timestamp it, so there's no excuses.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, great. So I'm definitely put it on my calendar for the 23rd.
Cool.
And then just extend the Zoom. Good.
Yeah, and we'll ping back and forth over Discord to figure out some of the any last details, so we know like exactly where we want to hit the ground running. Well, I think we've got a good idea now anyway. I think we're
I mean, again, the biggest point is like, like you letting me know if there's something that I have to flesh out in terms of like an outline for, in terms of like for the having it work with the mechanics, basically, right? Because like, again, you're talking about progress tracks and ticks. I'm just like, what does that mean?
Oh yeah, I'll chat to you on Discord about that. And like,
I could probably
explain it better than I'm explaining it now, because
let me see. Hold on.
Or just read it. Like it's not that complex. I'm making it sound way more complicated than it is.
Well, we tend to do that. There's also
just because I'm not explaining it well.
Well, no, because there's so much stuff, and again, this is one of the reasons why I got so overwhelmed with like, I want to use this as a solo thing. It's just like so much. Suffer. Okay, that's all the combat stuff. Give me a second. Okay, so where is the?
And combats work the same, right? Combat is just another type of progress track.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, no, totally.
But it's a smaller.
Typically, yeah, right. It's going to be a troublesome or a dangerous or whatever the third one is. Typically.
Yeah. So let's see. Where's start? Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole thing that starts on like chapter page 14.
Okay.
And goes and
I'll have to read up on it.
Yeah, it's like 14 through 18. So it's
okay, here we go. Okay, progress tracks with allies, progress rolls. Okay, got it. Progress moves. Okay, got it. Okay, so yeah, I'll have to read up on this. It looks. Again,
it's not as complicated as it looks.
Well, that's again. I go by visual first, and that visual just like scared the shit out of me when I saw it. So
it's that the thing on chapter 16, page. I keep saying chapter. Page 16 at the top tells you like how that lays out the difference between troublesome, dangerous, formidable, extreme, epic.
Got it.
And like how many boxes you fill when you make progress on each of those. So troublesome, you fill like 3 boxes every time you make progress. So if you've got a really easy fight, you hit the guy. Okay. And the strike move says, okay, mark progress. And you'll fill 3 boxes straight away. And then it's like, okay, so then your progress scores 3.
Yeah, okay. So it's the ticks first that you'd fill in.
Yeah.
And then
but if you're doing troublesome, you never really mark ticks because you're just, or you mark them all at once, right?
Right. Okay.
Mark a bunch of yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is weird. Okay.
It's not as hard as it looks.
No,
it is kind of different.
Yeah,
when
it
you
is
first
very
look at
different.
it.
Well, I mean, also too, I mean, like, I got a mini course on like Blades in the Dark / Forged in the Dark
Right,
stuff
right.
from Paul D. I mean, because he was trying to explain to me like how this works and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Not that I ever think I'm gonna run an actiony game, but it would be something interesting to
Yeah,
show
it can be fun.
versatility. Hopefully somebody drives a tank in our heist tomorrow. That's what I'm hoping for. So this will be weird coming from a heist found family movie RPG to going to the between and wondering what the fuck am I gonna do tomorrow? I have no idea.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
aside from beating up the Shoreditch Slugger before we break
Yeah, you have
on
to.
hiatus, I don't know what Artemis is gonna do. There's too many things, too many fucking things. She wants to destroy the Fae. She wants to resolve why the hell she's dreaming about Blakely. Ew. Too many goddamn things. And well, I don't know if it's because of hesitancy over PvP or if it's just because she says she thinks she's gonna go, but she really doesn't want to go. But I mean, like, Amanda said it's like, oh yeah, I'll be resolved. Like Blakely will be resolved by the 17th. She's not gonna let go.
Yeah,
She's holding on
no,
for dear
no.
freaking life. It's
She's got another
hilarious.
few sessions in there. Yeah.
No, she wants to. I mean, I don't think she's willing to give Blakely up yet, which is hilarious to watch. But I don't know. I mean, I get it because I mean she's been living with the character for how many episodes now? I mean, if you've fallen in love with her, I guess it's hard to let go. Because it doesn't seem like she had as clear of an arc necessarily as like, somebody like Dr. Noble or Sure Shot or
Right.
something. So that was very interesting. Because I kept on mentioning it to her. I said, like, would be interesting if Artemis found the cathedral. I mean, Artemis can cause some
cool.
havoc in the cathedral, but she doesn't seem to want me to do it. So okay. All right. So I'll look over the stuff.
Yeah, and just like ask me if it's confusing.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
think it's as bad. I don't think it's as bad as it initially looks.
well, I mean, the thing that I'm more concerned about is like, okay, so again, strike and post or whatever. It's like background vow to me means, I mean, epic. Once the shit hits the fan with the blade, it'll be her trying to figure out how to get rid of the blade, stop being blade bound. That's exactly. I think it's that's the goal, right? Yeah, but then
that sounds good to me.
There's a roundabout way to do it because there's no straight line.
Yeah, because she has to figure out what it means and what what's going on here. Like, where did this thing come from? Why am I connected to it?
Right.
There's a whole lot of
why am I the only one that can read this thing on it, the inscription that appears, and why can't Urek read it? Or why doesn't he see it? Something weird like that. Yeah, so the whole thing, I mean, if you want, I mean, like, go ahead and look at my column and see if there's any questions that I forgot to ask. Or
I'll take a look.
That I forgot to answer, excuse me.
I don't think so. I think we,
because some of these things that I didn't mark orange on yours was pretty much stuff that won't come up until after the blade bound condition happens. So, okay. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
All righty. Thank you very much.
I better go.
Okay. And we will meet again next week. Well,
and I'll see
each other tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, that was fun.
That was fun. Thank you. And so, yeah, we'll see each other tomorrow. And then, oh, wait. Okay, hold on. Tomorrow, Trophy Dark with Jack, Paranormal Incorporated. And then we have Mork Borg on Monday. Are you able to come to that game?
Yep. Yep.
Just making sure. I forgot to check in with the guys and be like, guys, you all set? Because we're doing this. Part 2. You're gonna end up on the island. Oh my God, I can't wait. I can't wait to see. What are you playing?
I need to watch the first one.
You do need to watch the first one. Holy shit. It's hilarious.
I'll make a point of doing that this weekend.
Okay, wait. All right. Hold on. Just for funsies, I'm going to give you a little homework, but I will make it very specific homework. Give me a second. I have too many playlists. I will say that. Oh, switch. Come on. All right. Temple of the Kraken God part.
Well, I mean, I guess.
All right. So, at the very least, watch in chapters. Watch the watch intro to the characters. The Sea of Corpses and the Red Star. The Fire. Trial of Lighthouse. And, well, the section, of course, marked. What does broken mean?
Oh yeah, I saw that bit. Yeah.
So good. Oh, and then medically inclined, cure for cataracts. Ye friggin' gods. I mean, is Morkborg supposed to be serious? Because I don't feel like it's serious. Am I wrong? I mean,
I think you're.
or are we playing it wrong? I want to know.
No, no, I think it's pretty tongue in cheek.
Okay,
It's
because
like dark humor. Yeah.
I mean, if we thought we had a hilarious time doing Sepulture of the Swamp Witch, I mean, Temple of the Kraken God Part 1 was just absolutely ridiculous. It was like, I don't know what's going on. And she's got 15 hit points now. How did I go from a three hit point forlorn philosopher to a Fang deserter with 15 hit points? What the hell? It's great. I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't think I was gonna like it. I really didn't, but I mean,
I'm glad you're having fun.
I am having fun. I don't know why I'm having fun, but I guess it's as Jack put it, like the buffoonery at the table. It's great. So I'm hoping to continue with more of that for part 2 on Monday. So, all right, I've kept you long enough. I've got to go get some dinner.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I've got to go
Okay.
get my kid on his piano lesson in 5 minutes as well.
Alrighty. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.